right, welcome everybody to the first fall edition of O365Eh. On today's show, we're joined by Mathew from Appspace, and he's going to walk us through how their solution improves communication and collaboration and integrates with the Microsoft ecosystem. So welcome, Mathew.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Why don't you give us a little intro to yourself? And I don't think our viewers are probably that familiar with Appspace, so maybe just a quick overview of the Appspace company and solution.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So Mathew Slack, I'm based out of Hamilton, Ontario. I'm a senior sales engineer at Appspace. So I cover the Northeast of the US as well as all of Canada. And I really help our customers solve what we call the missed memo challenge, which is really how do we ensure that all the employees within an organization stay in the know with communication? And what we're going to talk about today, really getting into how the Appspace environment integrates with various different Microsoft products.
That's great. So just to set the context, is there like one product or a solution set? Why don't you just walk us through what the solutions look like, and then maybe we can take a look at them.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Appspace, we have a number of different features. So what we're known for is actually digital signage. So we've been in the digital signage space for just over 20 years. So we have best-in-class digital signage. We recently won an award at Infocom, which is the big AV trade show. But what we're really excited for around digital signage is our integration with Microsoft Teams rooms, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But we also have the ability to deliver an employee intranet, employee communication solution. And before we were just talking, before we started recording today, why would you go with Appspace versus, say, SharePoint as an example? And we can really take advantage of kind of the best of both worlds. And we have a really interesting technology specifically around employee communications and intranet called Appspace orchestration. So what we can do with this technology is actually take in content that the internal communications team is producing for SharePoint. We can ingest that into Appspace and actually output that onto digital signage, say a Teams room system or a traditional digital signage display. So we have a lot of great tools there, but we do have a complete employee intranet, employee homepage experience that is completely customizable. And the other nice feature about using the Appspace employee communication suite is we use that same orchestration capability to not only be able to pull in, say, information from SharePoint and post it, but we can also produce content in the Appspace platform, and we can actually send that content to multiple different channels at the same time. So imagine, that internal communications team, they can go into Appspace, they can create content once, they can push it out to a Teams room system. So when that room system is not in use for a meeting, you see great corporate communications content on the screen. We can send out that same content to Viva Engage. We can send it out to a Teams channel. We can send it out to email, and we can also post it to SharePoint as well. So it really becomes this great kind of omni-channel platform that allows you to orchestrate communication through all these different Microsoft channels at the same time. So not only that capability, the digital signage and the employee communications, we also have space reservation capabilities built in the platform with wayfinding. And we also have a lot of capabilities around just making sure that employees stay, in the know. And often I get asked, why would you go with, say, Appspace versus Microsoft Places? So we actually work in conjunction with the Places team at Microsoft to really make sure that we're enhancing that experience and just providing some additional capabilities for users. So we have a very advanced, what we call a rules engine. So we can do very advanced things around, preventing things like zombie meetings in the environment, things like that. The other nice thing about Appspace, and what a lot of people don't know, is that we're not a hardware OEM. We're strictly a software company, a SaaS company. But our technology, the Appspace app, actually embeds in a wide variety of devices. So today, we're supported on Teams rooms on Windows devices, an example, across all the various different OEMs. But we're also embedded in a lot of devices. So think about, Crestron, Neat, Logi, etc. You can actually run Appspace on those devices, have all those great integrations with the Microsoft environment, but be able to do those more advanced kind of the rule-based kind of booking and things like that that are not currently available with, say, Microsoft Places or Exchange Online. I know that was a long answer. Hopefully that gave you a good overview.
No, that was great. I'm trying to visualize this. Do you have any demos or like a deck you could pop open to give viewers a taste what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you that. And the other thing I'd like to show is maybe just a bit of an overview of one of the most popular topics right now, which is Teams Rooms integration as well. So let me just share my screen here. Just give me 1 second. Let me know if everyone can see my screen okay.
Yep.
So this is the Appspace platform, and what I'm going to switch over to is the employee experience. Now, this is where we can actually visualize all this information. We can pull in that SharePoint content. We can visualize it here. We also have AI built into the platform. And what we're actually in preview right now is testing copilot integration as well. So the idea with our copilot integration is today you'll be able to go into this employee experience or go into the Microsoft 365 Copilot app and get informative answers into your employee intranet solution. We also surface within this employee experience the ability to federate search with SharePoint as well. So be able to bring in all those repositories, be able to extend the search capabilities. So a lot of really powerful capabilities there. But what's nice about this solution is it obviously builds on all that work you've already done with Microsoft, but it provides you the ability and the flexibility to really customize this experience for the employee. So with our solution, you can actually set up very individualized experiences. So if I wanted to have a different employee intranet experience based on location, say geographic region, things like that, we support it in the platform, including the ability to translate any of our content into 22 different languages. So I can go into any piece of content, I can actually translate in real time into, say, French Canadian, which is obviously popular in the Canadian market here. But if I want to consume this content in Arabic, as an example, I can do that. I can actually convert this into an audio podcast. You can probably hear this in the background. I can actually hear that content in my native language. So really building on those experiences. And again, I can pull in that SharePoint story and actually publish it in this and take advantage of all those AI capabilities. But we also have the ability not only to kind of customize this experience, but we also have the ability to do things like space reservation. So if I want to say, book a desk, book an office in an environment, you can do that. And you'll see on the screen here, we have a picture of a parkade. Not only can we book kind of traditional resources like desks and meeting rooms, things like that, but we can also book less traditional things like parking spots in a parkade. We even have customers using this solution to book trucks as part of fleet management. So a lot of really, really interesting use cases. But you can see here an example. I can have the ability to visually book a space within the environment. I can see all the details, the metadata, things like that. But behind the scenes, we have a true two-way sync with Exchange Online. So for many customers, they want to maintain that system of record, which is Exchange, and we can actually facilitate that in the system. So very easy. I've got the ability to say, book a space. I can book that space and all the kind of usual features that you're used to if you're using, say, Outlook Room Finder or even the Places Finder capability. But where we enhance the experience is what you see on the screen here. So this room I've enabled with what we call a checkpoint. So for many organizations, they want to be able to do things like order catering or order AV/IT support services, order specific, furniture setups in a room. I can add all of those optional services. I can also set it up so that maybe only the executive assistants within an organization can actually book catering. I can set all of that up. So we're really enhancing that experience where a user might just be booking a room in, say, Outlook or in Microsoft Teams. We can add all of these additional services over the top to really just enhance that experience. And you can see here, we can drive these great, menu experiences. If you've ever used, any of the services out there to order food as an example, we can get very granular and give you, if you order, say, a breakfast sandwich, 20 different sub options for that catering as an example, right? But I can select the different, food and services that I want, be able to check those out, be able to, schedule a time for when the catering is going to show up for that event. I can do things like add, AV/IT support services, add those into the cart. And as I progress through, we can have the workflows set up to actually send this information to those relevant teams. The other nice thing we support is actually the ability to take the data that's being generated behind the scenes. So imagine to coordinate in a very large environment, all of the catering and room setups and things like that is quite a daunting task. But what we can do with our analytics and reporting engine is actually integrate via Power Automate and actually have all this reporting go into, say, Power BI as an example. So it provides, those end users, those facilities teams, those catering teams, line of sight into all the kind of the advanced booking that's happening within all of these spaces. But you see here, I can select, the furniture configuration for this room. I can check that out, place that order. Now I've not only booked that room in Microsoft Exchange behind the scenes, but I have all these services ordered using that Appspace engine. So again, really just building upon that experience. The other thing I didn't mention as far as the features in Appspace, we also have visitor management built into the platform as well. So what I can do with this is I can actually invite visitors into my office. They would get a notification, an email that would actually show the location they're going to, the host name and the information. Then we also provide a QR code and a 6-digit pairing code. And what this allows you to do is we actually have partnerships with organizations like Neat as an example. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Neat frame. If you're not, it's a device, kind of a display-like device that can sit on a tabletop. We can run our Appspace app natively on those devices and be able to display what we call the visitor management card. So if I've received this invite to be a visitor in your building, I can simply go up to that Neat frame as an example. I can scan that QR code or enter my 6-digit pairing code. The host is notified that I'm there on site. And we, of course, can do some more advanced workflows if you want to surface like an NDA for that visitor, things like that. But really just building upon those experiences. And what we're trying to achieve with all this is to create, obviously, a great end user experience, but enhance the overall workplace experience and really help with that worth it equation. We want to make sure that it's, especially for those employees that are just returning to the office, to have a great experience, be able to find a desk, be able to book the right resources, be able to invite visitors very easily into the environment. And the other nice thing about the Appspace platform is we do have an open API, so we can do very, very advanced integrations. So if you want to integrate in with, physical security systems for badge scanning or different sensors, we can do that as well. And something we're really excited about is we just released an IoT framework. So what this will allow is when you're actually booking, say, a meeting room or a desk, we'll surface the sensor data. So imagine, I'm looking for a desk, I want to do heads down, very focused work. I can find a room based on the sensor data, maybe a quiet area. Maybe there's audio sensors picking up the decibels. We also have the ability to look at other things like, for example, the light levels of the space, things like that. And you can actually see this here. This is going back to that, basically our places finder experience to find a place with the environment. I can actually specify, I want a brightly lit environment or, something that's a little bit more dim or dark. I can specify, well, what rooms I want to book based on the temperature as well. So really, really these kind of advanced workflows. But what's really exciting about, IoT devices in general is we're finding that these IoT sensors are getting embedded in more and more devices, right? So we're just going to have more opportunities to integrate that in the platform and just provide that better employee experience. I'll just pause there. You got a question, Dino?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for that really in-depth overview. It looks really cool. So you talked about, obviously you're only doing software, and you talked about how you're partnering with many customers, and off camera we talked about MDEP. Maybe tell us a little bit about why that's important to our listeners, the Microsoft device ecosystem platform. So, and why, and as a follow-up to that, I guess I'm curious, do you only work with MDEP partners now, or obviously if not, then it may require a bit more work to get your app installed on non-MDEP partners?
Yeah, great question. So I'll take the second part first. Our app is embedded in a tremendous number of devices. I mentioned a number of those previously. We have a dedicated website that actually lists out all the devices that we certify, all the devices that have the Appspace app already embedded. And then we have a separate set of certifications for third parties to actually self-certify Appspace on their product. So it supports kind of a wide variety. I mentioned a few, many Crestron devices, whether it's scheduling panels, Air Media, things like that, have Appspace built into them. Neat devices, Logi devices, etc. For digital signage, we support all the popular system on chip. So, you can use, Samsung Tizen or LG WebOS to play our digital signage content. So a lot of different capabilities there. But what a lot of organizations, especially large enterprises, struggle with is really managing those devices. And I'm sure we've all heard, stories about AV. One of the great things in the audiovisual world was with Microsoft Teams rooms, being able to leverage all of the same tools you're using to manage your endpoints to manage those Teams room systems. Now, obviously, Microsoft has the Pro Management Portal that obviously enhances that experience, but you're able to use Entra, Intune, et cetera, with those devices. And the problem, again, with a lot of those other devices is just management at scale in the enterprise. A lot of organizations, they want to be able to leverage those Microsoft tools. And I think that's where MDAP is really, really powerful. You can use those same Microsoft tools, the same teams can manage those devices at scale and just really streamline that experience. So we're working with a manufacturer, lesser known, I'd say, in the Canadian market, but definitely one to keep an eye on, is a company called IDEA. And IDEA makes a number of different scheduling panel devices, media players, things like that. So we're working with IDEA as well as Microsoft to actually work through this, create a preview program for these digital signage media players that are going to leverage MDAP to actually drive that experience. So really, really excited for that.
Nice. Thank you.
I have a question. So you talked about all the digital signage. Like, how do you curate what content is going to the digital displays? Kind of maybe a subset or not the full intranet site, but how do you kind of curate that content? And is it video? Is it PowerPoint? Is it images? Is it everything? But what can you throw to those screens?
Yeah, great question. I'd say one of the most powerful things is the way we can automate it using that orchestration. So using the ability to pull in content from SharePoint and be able to display that on the screen, that capability is actually just built into our platform. So if you buy just our standard licensing, you actually get access to that capability. But we have a lot of different ways to kind of curate content and manage content. It starts very, very simply. I can, in as little as 3 clicks with Appspace, upload a PowerPoint deck. Our system will automatically convert that into a format that's usable in digital signage. I can publish that to a channel gets published to a device, and we're done. So literally 3 clicks, I can upload content into Appspace, whether it's a PowerPoint, a PDF document, images, video files, things like that, and publish that onto a device. Now, for larger enterprises, we've got very, very large enterprises with thousands and thousands of endpoints. We have very granular permissions in the system. So we can get down to, only a certain person at a certain location can say edit or modify a specific element within that digital signage screen. We also have very advanced tagging as well. Now, this is a very common scenario, especially around Teams rooms, is to be able to tag the content. So imagine you've got in your enterprise a number of screens that are in lobbies, outside of elevators, things like that. We can put a tag on those devices saying they're corporate communications devices. So they're always going to play back that corporate communications content that's tagged appropriately. Now in the meeting room, you probably want to have a mix of corporate communications and say, Teams rooms training documentation show up on the screen. That's where we can assign tags to those devices to play back both of those content types. So without doing a lot of work, you could very simply have a channel with all this different content, corporate communications, meeting room how-tos. And then when that meeting room system, that Teams room system is not in use, you'll be able to see that combined content coming through. But we do have very granular controls. We can, specify single devices, device groups, locations, sub-locations, as well as the advanced tagging to be able to publish that content.
So, Matt, I know that you guys have an app for Teams. Maybe just talk a little bit about that, and if there's any additional integrations either from that or hooks or anything like that from an AI perspective that you can sort of utilize in that space too, right?
For sure. So we do have for Appspace, we do have an add-in for Outlook. So when you're actually going to book a room, you can start to leverage those additional capabilities. So the ability to see, a picture of the room, the additional details on, what equipment is in the room, things like that. So that's built in as part of just that standard booking experience. We also have the ability to put the entire Places employee experience in the rail within Outlook or in Teams as well. The other nice thing about Teams is we do have the ability to integrate in with notifications. So as I'm completing those various different checkpoints that I showed you earlier, which are, ordering services, things like that, I can actually get those notifications in Microsoft Teams and be able to see them there. But I can also have that entire employee experience show up in Microsoft Teams and be able to, do the space reservation, the visitor management, all those capabilities directly in Teams. Now, from a content standpoint, when I'm actually publishing that content or creating that content in Appspace, I can elect to actually publish that content, not only digital signage, but I can also, elect to publish that to a Teams channel, as an example, or Viva Engage. I see more and more adoption of Viva Engage happening right now, and we have the ability to integrate that. And again, internal communications teams, marketing teams love this because they don't have to learn another platform. They can use a single platform, Appspace, or leverage SharePoint to drive all of these experiences. Now, what we're doing from an AI standpoint is we're infusing AI throughout the platform. So you saw a little bit earlier that capability around the translation, around creating those audio podcasts. And we also have what we call Appspace Intelligence, which is our ability to interface with all of that information data within that employee intranet experience. And what we're going to be adding is additional capabilities to use AI to help with things like space reservation. And the other really nice thing will be coming up in a future release is the ability to pull in data from SharePoint, say, text as an example, leverage AI to create graphics around that and publish that content. So it's really going to just streamline, especially again for those internal communications team, just the time required to actually publish content is going to be reduced greatly. The other really nice thing around AI, and this is available today, is we have what we call an AI card. And what this allows you to do from a digital signage standpoint is just with a kind of a standard prompt interface, be able to type in a prompt, create great engaging content about, a partnership between the company or a merger and acquisition. And it's going to create that content. But that's great. What makes it really powerful is I can actually specify to have that content created in multiple different languages at the same time. Now, I actually just had a customer out west in Calgary, and they wanted to actually produce this content in the Treaty 7 languages. So I literally put in, provide this, company updates, and I obviously put in English, and I said, also create the same content in Stony Nakoda and Cree, and it can actually produce that content in all the different languages. So that's great. It just, helps with the communications and being able to obviously, target different devices in different regions with different content. Here in Canada, the ability for that AI to help produce, English, French messaging, and for those devices to automatically pick that up and play back what is relevant for that region.
That's great. Thanks.
That's great, Matthew. As you walk through that, I sort of understand some of the use cases and scenarios more. I could see this applying in various business units and scenarios inside enterprises. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think a few of us have a hard stop, so we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Matthew. That was great. And I guess for anyone interested in the solution, it's appspace.com, right?
Yeah, and feel free to reach out, add me on LinkedIn or, reach out to any of the team here and they'll put us in touch.
Awesome. Thanks.
Great. Have a good day.